Hey guys, Claire here, and in today's video, we're going to talk about all things Harry and Meghan. The Invictus Games is coming to TSN and CTV. Bell Media is proud to be the official broadcaster partner for the Invictus Games 2025. Viewers across the country can tune into the games from February 8th to 16th in 2025. Veteran and former Invictus Games competitor and winner Elizabeth Marks will be taking part in the Paralympics in Paris. She'll be a part of Team USA's swimming roster, and for those of you who are unfamiliar, Elizabeth was one of the three who introduced Prince Harry during his recent Pat Tillman Award win at the ESPYs. Another former Olympic game competitor was recently interviewed by the BBC. Wally Norrie spoke about his life after sustaining life-changing injuries during his service in Afghanistan. He even shared insights to what it felt like to be a part of Team UK for the Invictus Games, what it felt like to meet Prince Harry, and all of the amazing things that he has been up to post his life of service in the military. It's also been announced that the CEO of the Invictus Games Foundation, Dominic Reid, will be stepping down after his 10-year tenure. Prince Harry is quoted as saying, "Thank you, Dominic, for a decade of relentless service to the Invictus Games Foundation. What a journey it has been, and how fortunate we are to work with such an incredible community of people." Congratulations are in effect for Omid Scobie. The author of Finding Freedom and, of course, Endgame, has announced that his Buckingham Palace book Royal Spin is in development to be a TV series. Now, I know that there are some Harry and Meghan fans who are not particularly fond of Omid, while there are some who are. So let me know in the comments below. Will you guys be tuning in? Now on to something that I would most definitely be tuning in and am super excited for. Now, according to Life and Style, Meghan's upcoming Netflix show was officially wrapped up. The lifestyle series will in essence be a bigger version of her blog, The Tig, and explore everything from cooking and gardening to entertaining and friendship. Now, according to a source, who is the source? I don't know, so take it with a grain of salt. But according to this unnamed source, Meghan really enjoyed being back in front of the camera. She was totally in her element, demonstrating her skills in the kitchen and sharing tips on how to be a perfect hostess. As for whether fans can expect to see the Duchess of Sussex's husband, Prince Harry, donning an apron, or friends like Serena Williams and Abigail Spencer taking on the role of Meghan's sous chef, the source hints it's very likely a famous face or two will appear on the show in some form or another. Personally, I feel like we're going to get an official launch of American Riviera Orchard when this show drops. But that's just my bet. And in other news, Tyler Perry, aka Princess Lilibet's godfather, will be toasted at the Paley Honors. Harry and Meghan, as well as other huge names in Hollywood, are also on the host committee. Now, this is going to be happening in a gala on December 4th, so we've got a while. This look right here, the hair, the blouse, I love it. I wish she would give us more of those hair looks. I miss those. I loved those. And in other royal news, this week my timeline saw a lot of tweets and comments about King Charles. Comments that were mostly negative. Some were sharing videos from the Republic showing the protests and boos and the "Not My King" chants as Charles and Camilla were on their way or leaving Parliament. I believe it's on their way. Then there were videos of him seeming to have a little issue with one of the page boys. So, yeah, that sort of reminded people of his unpleasant disposition during the coronation, and even more his unpleasant disposition when he was doing the thing with the ink or the pen. Let's just face it, Charles is not giving us warm and cuddly grandpapa, okay? He is grouchy. He's a grouchy man. Now, there are the usual tweets saying that it goes without saying that this is farcical, wasteful, and embarrassing, and it's high time Britain's democracy grew up. Someone else said Britain's state opening of Parliament, a nation watches a billionaire sit on a gold chair wearing a diamond hat. because he has magic blood. While they struggle to feed their kids, pay their mortgages, and put food on the table, they're made to pay for it all too. Hashtag King's Speech. Someone else said King Charles on his way to the British Parliament to talk about British child poverty in a gold carriage in 2024. Stop the, well, you can read the rest. Hashtag King's Speech. Now, Camilla was not exempt from the public tongue lashing, if you will. Someone shared screenshots of people going in on Queen Cam on Facebook. They don't catch a break now, do they? You know what? I would feel a little bit more pity if they would leave Harry and Meghan alone, but they don't, so just gonna mind my business.
He's done it again for the second time in less than a week. King Charles has visibly snapped and showed his frustration at a second person. This time, a poor page boy, which is a ceremonial role if you don't know. A page boy is basically an assistant to the king and queen. As a poor page boy gets the wrath of Charles's bad temper because the page boy was doing his job and straightening this ridiculous gown/robe in preparations for photographs. Charles really needs to remember how lucky he is and how privileged he is to be in this role with unlimited riches, power, and whatever, resources, I would say. He really needs to appreciate how lucky he is being in this role where millions of children and millions of families in the UK are literally worried about what bill is going to come through the door, literally terrified that there'll be a massive bill coming through the door that they cannot pay. Charles, on the other hand, cannot keep his cool when he has to do some work that lasted him literally from when he left his front door less than 90 minutes.
Now, in my last video titled Deletions, Distractions, and Double Standards, and if you haven't seen it yet, I'll leave a link in the description, you can check it out. But in that last video, we talked about that Vulture article where I believe it was 20 or 21 articles were deleted. And those articles in question were about the triangle between Willie, Katie, and Rose. So 20 to 21 were deleted, and I believe there were 6 that were heavily edited post-publication. We talked about the double standards, the power that the palace has over what is put out there, the sanitized PR of William and Kate, and the not so invisible contract. And this week we saw that again. There was a little awkward moment at Wimbledon with the Middleton sisters and one of the players, Carlos, and the video just was taken down from the Daily Mail. And to me, that little video wasn't really a big deal. It was just like a little awkward moment. This just goes to show you how heavily focused they are on keeping that sanitized persona of all things William and Kate and the power and influence that they have to make that happen. Just like we were just previously talking about the boos and protests for Charles and Camilla going to Parliament. When you look at the UK tabloids for that day, look at all the articles. There was only like 1 or 2 that briefly sort of hinted at the presence of the protesters. But the vast majority of them just sort of like did not talk about that. Just like during the trooping, you have protesters booing Catherine's carriage. When you go back to that day, I think it was only 1 article that touched on that, and that was The Independent, I want to say. So there is that not so invisible contract that really is working overtime to sanitize all things Windsors, especially the future king and queen of the UK. Also, I would always get comments from people who would say, you know, well, we don't care about Meghan because Kate's gonna be queen anyway. And I don't know, maybe it's just because I don't really care for monarchies in general, that sort of commentary or outlook just makes me chuckle, because I'm like, okay, Camilla is now queen. and most people still can't stand her. So it's not like you become queen and it automatically just gives you this global love and admiration. You are who you are, and people are going to have their opinions of you, regardless if you're a princess or a queen. It really doesn't matter. In this day and age, deference to public beings, royalty as well, is on a decline. The more I look into the lives of the women who marry into royal families, and not just the British royal family, but my goodness, some of them just look so unhappy. There's almost always a scandal of a husband, an heir, or a king who is unfaithful, a wife whose job it is to just shut up, put on a smile, a pretty dress, and look adorable. Just this week, there was a story about one of the princesses. I can't remember which monarchy that story is for, but she made a post online about her intention to divorce her husband, who is out here enjoying the company of women who are not his wife. Look at Meghan's experience. Look at Princess Diana's experience. There are others who marry into royalty, and seeing the personalities of these women before they marry into it, it looks like they just zap the personality and joy out of these women's existences. So whenever I hear people in the comment section say, well, she's going to be queen, like that is some ultimate goal that is aspirational. I don't get it. I don't.
The men's Wimbledon final. But is she attending it for pleasure or work? Because it's so hard to tell. Sitting down watching two fit men for potentially 5 hours could be quite challenging, especially in those comfy chairs in the royal box. And then there'll be the tricky walk down a few steps and onto the court to hold the trophy for a few seconds before handing it to the winner. I'm sure her doctors deemed her well enough to attend it. Obviously attending the women's final would have been too much. Meanwhile, Prince William, our Green Prince, is private jetting it back to Germany to watch the men's football final. Who's looking after their kids? Anyway, I think I found the answer to the question, is Princess Kate's attendance at Wimbledon work? Obviously not. Otherwise she'd be back attending events of some of the other charities that she's patron of.
Tyler on X recently posted that I just helped Meghan Markle buy plants at a nursery I work at. Had no idea who she was till my manager told me who it was, and I still didn't know until I looked it up. She was actually very nice. And this is the recurring theme that I've always seen of people who have actually met her and interacted with her. She's just nice.
It is Flashback Friday, and it's all about Meghan. I pulled an old clip where Meghan was at a women's entrepreneurial conference in Atlanta back in 2016, and the entire interview is absolutely incredible. I did edit out some of the questions from the interviewer, but it all makes sense, I promise. I hope that you all enjoy a little bit of Meghan lore. It's pre-Duchess time, and she's always been that girl. In this first clip, Meghan talks a little bit about her humanitarian work and her priorities for life. She speaks about her time at the UN, her visit to India, as well as her time in Rwanda. In this clip, she doesn't yet talk about One Young World, but she does that in the fourth post that I'll be making, and I'll be dropping it all today. I hope you enjoy.
Really putting my own personal thumbprint on it. It's my handwriting on the site. The logo is designed like a wine glass with the drop of the wine is the eye on the, It's my baby, so I'm very proud of it still after 2 years. But no, I really think it was one of those moments that had I gone in that other direction with these people who had nothing but good intentions, really, but it wasn't organic to what I wanted to be doing, and I knew that in my core, the site would be completely different. And, my castmate, Gina Torres, who plays Jessica on the show, she gave me some advice a couple years ago, and she calls me Nutmeg, but she'll be like, Nutmeg, just leave room for magic. And frankly, the moment that I did that, and even with the TIG, writing these pieces, I had no idea that I sit there on 4th of July and say, I'm going to write a piece about Independence Day and talk about your self-worth. 4 days later, I got an email from one of the highest executives for UN Women saying they wanted to work with me. I thought it was a joke. I was like, the United Nations wants to work with me because I wrote this thing on my blog? But they did. It was crazy. And it's those sort of things where it's like when you really follow what makes sense to you intrinsically, I think you end up on the right path. You know, and I would get these emails and I saw that one and I responded immediately and had a conference call with them. And I said, look, I have a 1 week break from filming. Can I come and intern at UN headquarters in New York? And there was this incredibly long pause on the phone because I don't think anyone had ever asked if they could come and intern at UN headquarters. And I was like, right, but I'm not filming and I've got time and I'll get your coffee. I just want to sit in on meetings. And they ended up getting me the clearance and they said, yes, that's what I did for my hiatus. And just really wanted to learn so much about the organization because I think anything I get involved with, I don't want to just show up on a red carpet for a cause and wave my hand without knowing what I'm really doing there and why it's important for me to be there. And the same to be said with UN Women. Of course, the UN's an incredible organization, but I'm not just going to tack my name onto it and not really know something purpose-driven is happening for me. So I started working with them, went to Rwanda for a field mission to meet with female parliamentarians in Rwanda. It's an incredible country which has the highest percentage of female parliamentarians of any government in the world. 64% of their Congress is female, which is amazing. And so I did that trip with them, and then it just continued to open so many doors. And I think, you know, any sort of speaking engagements I've done about women's rights has really come from that moment initially. And then I started working with World Vision as their global ambassador and went to Rwanda purely out of coincidence again this past year. And then I'm going to India in January to work on a women's program there that I'm really excited about.
Tell us a little bit about World Vision and what they do.
Yeah, well, I mean, World Vision, their biggest platform is really just trying to end child poverty and hunger. And while I think my biggest focus has been gender equality and women's rights, all starting from something that happened when I was really young. When I was 11 years old, there was a commercial that I found to be sexist, and I wrote these letters to have the commercial changed, and the commercial got changed. And that was this moment where my very opinionated little spirit was outspoken then, and that has, I think, carried with me for quite a long time. You know, World Vision has been great because they had reached out to me and they gave me the opportunity to not just connect to something that they already had set up, but instead to say, what's important to you? What do you really want to work on? So, you know, I like to take risks, as I think you guys can tell. If any of you are pursuing acting, you do too. But I think for me, what was so interesting is maybe 3 years ago, I had seen a video about many young women dropping out of school in these small towns outside of, in small townships in India because they were getting their period and they had nowhere to go and change any sanitary napkin or anything else like that. And immediately, no one wants to talk about it because you're talking about periods, which is exactly why we should talk about it.
We literally have talked about periods a lot today, which is hilarious.
Have you? Here's the thing. It's like, fine. It's not dinner party conversation when people want to talk about water and clean water initiatives. But frankly, the fact that all of these young girls at the age of 12 or 13 are dropping out of school purely because they don't have a place to feel comfortable because something very natural is happening to their body is a problem that we can easily fix. And so the fact that no one wants to talk about it is why I want to talk about it and why I'm going to India in January to do everything I can and try to get a corporate sponsor, like always. Whatever it is, it's like if there is a problem out there and you know that it seems nonsensical and we have the means to talk about it and not just retweet it and not just come up with some hashtag, but to really find the call to action and do something about it, then I completely believe that it's our responsibility to do it. We're so privileged, and it also, in a really incredible way, puts an amazing perspective to the things in our lives that seem so huge. And at the end of the day, while it's all important, I think being able to give back and do any sort of humanitarian work will make your life feel a lot more balanced because you realize where your priorities should be, maybe, you know.
And in today's episode of What the What, this headline from The Independent had me scratching my head because it makes no sense. This is just an example of them feeling the need to insert Harry or Meghan's name into a headline that is way too long, but I guess, you know, anything for clicks. It says, Royal News Live, Prince Harry suffers Invictus blow. As it emerges, Trump, fill in the blank, researched royal family member. What? That makes no sense. That makes no sense. But I'm glad to see that I'm not the only one who found it to be comically idiotic.
The FBI is saying that Thomas Matthew Crooks researched a royal before the thing. And Harry and Meghan have decided to officially go with Sussex as the last name of their kids instead of Mountbatten Windsor, breaking the dead queen's heart. What? Was that confusing? Do you need it repeated? Please don't. Already dizzy from the emotional whiplash. What in the world makes you think those two things belong in the same article? This is royal news. Both these things are royal news. You're wrong, but even if by some off chance they were royal news, those two things don't belong in the same article. They have nothing to do with each other. They might. You didn't even name the royal he researched. Well, we all know which one's the most likely, right? What? Could have mentioned so many other things, like the threats against Harry and Meghan, the people who have been charged and convicted of making those threats, and other crimes related to them. You could have even mentioned that Charles had a security incident this week. But where would we put the name thing? A different article or nowhere. It's barely a fun fact. They broke a 64-year tradition. How traditional is that for an institution that's lasted over 1,000 years? This is just like a running ticker of royal news. And you posted the same article about the name thing 2 days ago. But look, no, this isn't about names. We're not talking about names. This is about you taking a big, irrational thing that is hard to understand and juxtaposing it next to a small, trivial matter that people can easily wrap their minds around and have strong feelings about, just making it easier for them to get mad and take all of that emotional confusion about the big thing and put it on the stupid little thing. Yeah, that's the royal beat.
The Princess of Dubai, Sheikha Mahra. I practiced that. Please let me know if I'm still getting it wrong. Sheikha Mahra. Mahra. I'm not really one to follow royalty in other countries, but I have never in my life single-handedly found out about someone's existence and immediately pledged my solidarity to them so fast. She has publicly posted on Instagram to her husband that she is divorcing him. Apparently, he's been spending all of his time with all kinds of women. You notice she says, "I divorce you 3 times." This is apparently a practice used in some Muslim countries where a man can instantly divorce his wife by saying, "I divorce you 3 times." Many are saying it's kind of a big deal that a woman, the princess, did it publicly. I've seen others say, well, of course she can get away with it. She's royalty. But in my experience, bringing about change starts with people who have the power to do so. Either way, I applaud her. And I don't care who you are. Royalty, the everyman. Divorce is difficult. I know she's got a road of healing ahead. I wish her the best.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, hit that notification bell.